I never thought a single day could be worse than losing my son. He was only 5, full of laughter, energy, and mischief. But life has a cruel way of piling grief upon grief, and I felt it in every bone when I learned where my wife was. The funeral was quiet, somber, the kind of stillness that presses into your chest and won't let go. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered, offering tissues, hugs, and condolences, but none of it could fill the void. My heart ached for the little boy who would never grow taller, who would never learn to ride a bike, never tell me his silly jokes, never call me best dad ever. And then I remembered. I remembered that my wife wasn't here, that she had chosen, in the midst of our unimaginable loss, to fly to Hawaii with her lover. I saw it on her Instagram story, her laughing on a beach, the sun gleaming on the water, cocktails in hand, the caption, "Finally free and happy. Paradise. Living my best life." I felt bile rise in my throat. How could she? While I was sitting in the church holding our son's tiny coffin, saying goodbye to the boy we had both brought into this world, she was celebrating. She was flaunting her betrayal, her selfishness, her abandonment. I kept my composure during the funeral as much as I could. Friends and family murmured quietly around me, offering shoulders to lean on. I thanked them, but my mind was elsewhere. My son's little shoes, carefully polished, sat by the casket. The tiny superhero cape he had begged to wear for his birthday, now draped over the edge of the coffin. Memories flashed like lightning, his laughter at bedtime stories, the way he would insist on holding my hand as we crossed the street, the hugs that felt like they could fix the world. After the ceremony, I stepped outside, letting the wind hit my face, trying to breathe. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from her. "Wish you were here, but paradise is calling. Don't be sad. We'll celebrate soon. Love you." I stared at the screen, the words meaningless, mocking. She didn't even attempt to apologize. She didn't even attempt to acknowledge the magnitude of the loss. Her message was empty, hollow, a thin veil over the truth. She had chosen herself over us, over our grief, over the life of our child. That night, I sat alone in the house we once shared, the walls echoing memories of laughter and arguments, bedtime stories and bedtime prayers. I thought about what revenge could mean, but I didn't want anger. I wanted justice, quiet, undeniable. Grandma's words echoed in my mind. Revenge isn't yelling. Revenge is showing them the truth they refuse to see. I started documenting everything. Every message she had ever sent that hinted at discontent, every instance of neglect, every time she had put her desires above our son's well-being. I contacted friends, relatives, and even neighbors who had noticed her distance and her secretive behaviors. They confirmed what I suspected. She had been dishonest, manipulative, and deceitful for years, and the Hawaii trip was just the final proof. The next morning, I drafted a letter to everyone important in our lives, family, friends, colleagues. I included screenshots, travel bookings, social media posts. I didn't embellish, I didn't yell. I let the evidence speak for itself. Her betrayal was laid bare, not as an accusation, but as a record. Weeks passed. The reactions came slowly but surely. Friends reached out, not to console her, but to ask me how I was holding up. Family members who had been silent started questioning her choices, her integrity. Her lover's reputation, previously unchallenged, came under scrutiny. Invitations she had hoped to flaunt were quietly revoked. People began to see the truth she had tried to hide behind smiles and lies. Meanwhile, I focused on my son's memory. I donated his favorite toys to local children's hospitals. I started a small scholarship in his name at his preschool. Every time I felt the pang of loss, I transformed it into something meaningful, something that would honor the boy who had been taken from us. Months later, she returned from Hawaii, expecting things to continue as if nothing had happened. But the world she had known had shifted. Invitations she expected were gone. Mutual friends were distant. Even her own family had started questioning her choices, wondering how someone could be so selfish, so cruel, so utterly blind to the devastation left in her wake. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply met her at the door, calm, composed, the kind of stillness that carries more power than a storm. "You missed your son's funeral," I said quietly. "You missed the last moments of someone you brought into this world, and you thought paradise was more important." She tried to justify it. She tried to blame stress, grief, anything that could shift responsibility. But her words fell flat. I had already prepared. I had the records, the messages, the confirmations, the witness accounts. The truth didn't need shouting. It didn't need anger. It was already undeniable. I made one request. She would have no access to our son's memorials, his pictures, his stories. I wouldn't fight for anger or money. I wanted her removed from the narrative she had destroyed. And quietly, methodically, the circle of people who mattered agreed. By the end of the year, she was isolated, not by vengeance, not by rage, but by reality. The world had already judged her actions, her betrayal, and her absence. Meanwhile, I thrived. I surrounded myself with those who mattered, people who supported me and our son's memory. I became stronger, calmer, more resilient. Every step I took honored him. The cruelest betrayal had taught me the hardest lesson. People who abandon love and responsibility eventually face the consequences, not through punishment, but through the undeniable truth of their actions. And those who are left to grieve can choose to rise, not fall. I still miss him. I always will. But every smile I coax from a child in the hospital, every scholarship I award, every memory I share keeps a part of him alive. And somewhere, in the quiet humiliation of her choices, she realizes too late. Paradise meant nothing when she left the world behind her son and her family, broken. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's survival, perseverance, and letting the truth expose betrayal in its own undeniable way. And that day, at the funeral, when I whispered goodbye to my boy, I knew I would rise above. I rose above.